Hello and welcome, I'm Dave. Today we add user authentication to our full-stack Next.js app and take the first steps towards authorization and permissions, all of which are required and crucial early steps in the development of most full-stack applications. I'll provide a link to all resources in the description. And I'll also provide a link to join my Discord server where you can discuss this Next.js full-stack project with fellow students, ask questions, and help each other out. Hey guys, a big shout out and thank you to Sentry for making this full-stack Next.js educational video series possible. Sentry is defining debuggability in full-stack web applications, and I consider Sentry to be an essential part of my tech stack. From error reporting, logging, and tracking to identifying performance issues with tracing, to user session replays, and much more, Sentry will help you write and ship code that delivers exceptional user experiences. Follow the Sentry links in the video description or just visit Sentry.io and use the code davegray to get 3 months of the Sentry team plan for free. In this Next.js full-stack project series, I'm using the same tech stack that I've been working with on a major project at my job over the past year. For viewers, students, and subscribers that have asked what I work with on a daily basis, this is definitely the tutorial series to watch. Hey guys, I've got VS Code open. Our starting code for today is the completed code from lesson 1. And I want to start out the lesson by looking at our user stories list, this markdown file, and it has the different items that we could check off that we possibly completed in each lesson. And we did complete just a few in lesson 1. Now, if I click in the markdown file, I can't hide the file tree with Control B, but if I click up here, I believe I can by pressing Control B. Okay, now in this markdown file, I could put an X in each one of these boxes, but I want to show you the extension that I use to view markdown files, and then it will just let me click in the box like a checkbox. So let's go to the extensions real quick, and I'll pull this up. It's called Markdown Preview Enhanced. So if you want to install this extension, you'll be able to do the same thing you see me do with our user stories checklist. Again, Markdown Preview Enhanced. Okay, now that we're finished looking at that, I'll hide the file tree once again. It looks like our user story is closed out. Let me pull that back up. I'll click back up here so I hopefully can close the file tree by pressing Control B. And now that I am in the active markdown file, I can press Control K and then the letter V, and it opens up the markdown file more like we would see it on GitHub or in some other markdown reader. So this is actually a checklist, and we can look at these items. Now I don't see the numbers here, so it's also handy to have the actual markdown file here on the left so I can refer to these numbers for you. So the first thing that we completed was number 2, add a public-facing page with basic contact info. We did that in the last lesson, so let's go ahead and check that box. You can see now I added a check here, and it created an X over here in the actual file, and you see the dot that the file has been modified. Now after that one, what else did we complete? Well, we're going to have to scroll down a ways. We completed number 19. We added light and dark mode option requested by the employees of our stakeholders. So we can check that one off. Another one, and we're going to continue to work on this as we go, but number 20 says expects quick support if anything goes wrong with the app. I did show how Sentry will send us notifications as soon as there's an error in the app. We should know about errors before our stakeholder even contacts us to tell us there was an error, and so that should allow us to give quick support. So let's go ahead and check number 20 off, and know we will continue to work with Sentry throughout this Next.js full stack project tutorial series. And now we're ready for today's addition to our tech stack on our Next.js full stack project. We're implementing user authentication and authorization with Kinde Auth. And as you see here, Kinde offers up to 10,500 monthly active users on the free plan. That is amazing. So let me go to a darker screen here as I talk about Kinde Auth and some of the things I'm choosing Kinde Auth for. First of all, I've been using Kinde Auth on both my personal and professional projects for over a year now. That said, it's kind of been a hot take on X, Twitter, if you will, and even one of my favorite podcasts that you should be scared of monthly active user charges and should consider rolling your own auth. But there's a few reasons that I don't agree with that. First of all, as I already showed you, Kinde offers up to 10,500 500 free monthly active users. So if your software as a service gets even close to this number of users, you, my friend, have a good problem on your hands. At that point, you can consider if you want to continue with their service or look at other solutions. Now, if you're creating an app like this project, which is for employees that are only working at a computer repair shop, even if the owner has over 20 employees, you still have over 10,000 free monthly active users to spare, so no problem there. Now, a second reason that I choose Kinde is because I can implement Kinde Auth in minutes instead of spending a day or more to roll my own Auth solution, and it would probably take me a day or more to do it, and I wouldn't build anything nearly as good as what Kinde has in that short amount of time. Remember, our stakeholder for this project specifically requested a passwordless auth. That's one of our user stories. That's easy to set up with Kinde. And my third point is, finally, I'm not a one-man security department. Kinde will keep up with security patches. They send out notifications for packages that must be updated to stay secure, and that takes another weight off my shoulders. All right, I've justified my decision for using Kinde enough. Let's go ahead and get started by implementing it into our full-stack Next.js project. Okay, we are back on the Kinde homepage, and notice it's Kinde spelled with an E at the end, so Kinde.com, as you see here. All you have to do is click Start for free. They do have a free plan. We should not have to pay for anything that we're doing with this Next.js full stack project. Okay, you can create your Kinde account. Notice they accept a GitHub if you want to have a social login with that, or your Google Gmail account, or we can log in with an email, which is what I'm going to do. So I'll go ahead and create an account here, Dave Gray, and I'm Dave at davegray.codes. Click Create Your Own Account. We should be taken to another page, and now it's going to ask for a code. So this is a nice preview of how Kinde handles passwordless authentication. So this is what's going to happen in our app. After we click to log in, they'll send a code. Then the user enters a code and they log in. No passwords to remember. So check your email if you entered in a different email, of course, than mine. I don't want to get your code. And then enter in the code that you receive and we'll move forward. I'll do the same, of course. On the next page, it asks us for our business details. Now keep in mind the business name that we show here is going to show on the login pages. So if you are creating this as a developer for hire, maybe you want to create an account for your stakeholder's business, and that's the name you would put in there. So for example, here I'm going to put Computer Repair Shop as the business name, but just know that this would be something I would do. I would probably request my stakeholder give me an email at their domain, and I would set it up for them. So they would have their own account that way. But here I'll call this Computer Repair Shop as the business name. Now you can see it wants to create a Kinde domain and it wants to put Computer Repair Shop in front of that. That's kind of long, so let me see if I'm allowed to change it to just crs.kinde.com. If that's available, I will go with that. Now I'm going to choose the region where my data is stored. I'm going to put it as close to where I am as possible, and that's in the US. So now I'll click Next. And let's see what we get. Yeah, I've got to have one at least 4 letters long. I was afraid of that. So let's go ahead and go back to Computer Repair Shop. At least I won't forget it that way. Click Next. And now it shouldn't take too long and Kinde will get us set up with our free account. And the next screen gives us a wizard saying, what do we want to do? Start a project from scratch or use Kinde with my existing code base? Well, we have an existing code base. We already created our Next.js project. So let's click this one and let's go to Next. Okay, now it's asking what we are coding with. What library or framework are we using? And we should be able to find Next.js here. There it is. They have many SDKs available. SDK stands for Software Developer Kit. Okay, we'll click Next, and let's see what we have here. How do users sign in? So they support many social logins that you'll be able to activate in your account. Here it gives you an example of Facebook. We're just going to use email, but just know they're not limited to Facebook. They have many, many socials that are integrated if you want to use those. We'll just go with email though. Click Next. And let's see what we get. So finish setting up your project on Kinde. We can connect your Next.js codebase or use their starter kit. We're just going to connect our codebase. So click Connect, and we'll see what we have here, a quick start page. So now we'll be able to work our way down this quick start page. You can ignore this message that says we don't have an SDK for Next.js yet, because they clearly do, so they just need to update that. But otherwise, here we'll be able to scroll down and follow some steps for our existing code base. So it says we're going to run our dev project on localhost 3000, and that is correct, so no problem there. The very next thing we need to do is add the Kinde Next.js SDK as a dependency to our project. Now remember, as I'm creating this tutorial, we're just days away from the Next.js conference here at the end of October in 2024. Now you might be watching this in the future, and you might be able to just use this command by copying this and running it in your terminal. However, I'm using the Next.js 15 release candidate. I expect the stable version to be released very, very soon. But I'm going to have to use, as you remember from the first lesson, that legacy peer deps flag along with this install command in my terminal. Let's go to the VS Code terminal and install. Hey guys, just a quick update note. At the end of the day, after I had recorded this second video of the series, Next.js released Next.js 15. Now, if you want to use it now, it's okay. I would recommend using the automated upgrade CLI with this command right here, npx @next/codemod@canary upgrade latest. It will give you a little wizard to walk through. It will also make turbo dev mode available, and I recommend that. I've noticed a speed increase. But now that I say that, if we look at the upgrading version page, when you use this upgrade, or if you were to use the terminal, notice they're still using the release candidates for React and React DOM. So React 19 hasn't been released yet. You're still going to need to use that legacy peer deps flag that you see me use until everybody has caught up to these new releases. And that means all of the SDKs are going to have to make changes that go along with using Next.js 15 and React 19. So in the meantime, Next.js has built in some nice warnings that you might see actually if you forget to use the legacy peer deps as you upgrade your code, because there are some breaking changes, and you can see all of those if you go to their blog and then choose this October 21st, 24 announcement, choose Next.js 15, and read through the changes. Here's a couple of breaking changes right here. So just things to note if you decide to go ahead and use this Next.js 15 release, which I encourage. You can do it, but just a few notes on that upgrade, and continue to use that legacy peer deps flag as you install things for now. Okay, back in VS Code, I'll click the package.json file just as a reminder to everyone here that we see Next, and I've got the release candidate here for that. I've also got the release candidate for React 19 and React DOM 19. Now, in the very near future, these should be stable, and you might be watching the video at that time. You may have already installed the stable versions, so you won't need the legacy peer deps flag that I'm going to use at the end of this command. But here you can see my command. Same thing they showed in the docs, but I've added legacy peer deps. We'll go ahead and press enter. This should install with no problem, and we'll be able to move on. Everything installed easily. Let's go back and look at the next step in our Kinde step-by-step guide. Scrolling down in the Kinde guide, you can see the next thing to do is update the environment vars. It says in your .env.local, which we created in the last tutorial because we needed to put in a auth token for Sentry. Now we're going to have to put in some stuff for Kinde. One nice thing Kinde does here, that one reason I can show you this, is it says Kinde client secret. It's hidden until it's copied, so that's nice. Other than that, you can see the issuer here is going to be that URL that Kinde created for us, computerrepairshop.kinde.com. We're going to use localhost 3000 in development. Logout gets redirected back to localhost 3000. And then the login redirect. So after you log in, where are you sent to? And it sends to the dashboard route. Now we're not going to have a dashboard route. If you remember, we have a home route. So we'll want to change this to home. Now I can't show you my .env.local, and remember, I don't send that to the GitHub course resources either. You should never send your environment variables to GitHub. So I'm just trusting you to go ahead and copy this and paste these into your .env.local file that you should have from lesson 1 if you created it, and also to change those URLs as we said. So the redirect URL here would be home, and you would want to change this one to /login, as we're going to create a login route. So copy, let's go add those to our files. Okay, I have added those to my .env local. I'm going to trust that you did the same. Once again, I can't show you the contents of that because those are my secrets. Back in the kind directions, let's scroll down to the next step, and we need to create an API endpoint. It says create the following. So it's in the source directory, in the app directory, then we create an API directory, then we create an auth directory, then we create a dynamic directory. That's what this is in brackets in Next.js. If you create a directory with brackets around it, it's dynamic, and we'll put kind auth there. And then finally, a route.js file. You can see the contents of that route.js file are very simple. So let's copy this. Now let's go back to VS Code and create these directories that are needed. We're back in VS Code. I'm going to close the terminal window for now. We'll open up the source directory, then the app directory. Now inside the app directory, we need a new directory named API. Then inside that directory, we need a new one named auth. And inside the auth directory, we need that dynamic directory. So we start with a square bracket, we type kind, lowercase, and then auth with a capital A, and another bracket. And now inside of this is where we create the route.js file, and we can paste those ingredients there and save. And really this should probably be a route.ts now that I think about it. So let's rename this, see if we can go with TS for TypeScript on this file. And yes, it still doesn't have any issues up here with TypeScript. All is good. Back in the kind directions now, I'll scroll just a little bit further, and it says we need to add sign up and sign in buttons. We're not going to copy this directly. We'll go ahead and add the page that we're going to use for a login in our Next.js project. So let's go back to VS Code and create that route. Back in VS Code, I can close the route.ts file, and we can collapse our API route here that's inside of the app directory. Now we don't want to create the login inside of the RS directory here either. So I'm just going to highlight app in the file tree, create a new directory here and call it login. And then inside of this login directory, we'll have a new file named page.tsx. Now specifically for this app, we're not going to have public registration at all for users. This is just for employees at the repair shop, and those employees will be manually added as users by either us or the owner, our stakeholder. So we just want to use a sign-in link and make it look like a button, and that will allow the employees to log into the app at a specific path. So this would be at the domain/login would be the route that they would use. So here in development mode, it will be localhost 3000/login. Let's start by importing the login link from kind. So login link, I'll press tab, but it doesn't complete the import quite correctly there. So after kind auth Next.js, we need /components, and that completes the import correctly. After that, we need import and button from shadcn. Now, where did I lose that from? So I want this to be at /components/UI/button. There we go. Okay, I've got the imports. Now export default function. Let's call this login page. Now inside of our login page function, we're going to return here, and we'll have a main element. Inside the main element, we'll have an h1 that says repair shop. And then we also want to have our login button. And we do that by using button from shadcn and then using the as child prop. And then we can have a link inside. That's where we use the login link from kind. And here we can put sign in on the button. We put a capital I on the word in. Now that looks good, but we haven't added any classes yet. And this will be fairly simple. We want to have the button and the title at the top center of the page. So to do that, we'll use h-dvh to have the page be full height. After that, we'll say flex and flex column. Then we'll say item center, not justify center, because we don't want this in the middle of the page. We just want it at the top of the page centered. Then a gap-6 text-4XL to keep that repair shop title large, and padding 4. So let's save that, and if it looks good, we should be able to open up a terminal window, run npm run dev, and get the application started up. Now I should be able to click localhost 3000 here as I hold down the control button and launch the application in the browser. Okay, it launches to our public splash page, and that's okay. Let's go to /login, and this is how this simple sign-in page works. Now, if you click sign in, it's not going to work yet. We're not nearly finished setting up everything, but we're this far along. Now let's move to the next step. Back at the Kinde instructions in the Kinde dashboard, you can see our application is called My Next.js App, which is just a generic title. And if we scroll down, it says open your project in a browser, which we really did already. And we can see the sign in button, sign up your first user. Well, we're going to add a user here inside of the Kinde dashboard because the users for this project will be added manually. And you can view the Next.js docs, but let's just look at the different settings we still need for our app. So let's go to Home, first of all, and then we should be able to scroll down and see our application here. We click the 3 dots, you can delete application, or you can click down here and view details. So we could rename this. I'm going to name this Computer Repair Shop for the app. The language framework, Next.js, that is correct. And as we scroll down, we see our key here that could be copied if we would ever need it again, and the client ID. A couple of settings here for callback URLs that we don't need to set, but this was already set for us, and we do need this. This is the allowed callback URLs, and this is the Kinde callback. So this needs to stay as it is. Now in the future, when we deploy, of course, we're going to want to have a different URL than localhost 3000, but during development, this is good. The allowed logout redirect URLs. Localhost 3000 is okay, but like I said, maybe we want to redirect back to our login page instead of that public-facing splash page. If we scroll down a little further, the authentication experience, we're not going to ask for first name and last name. They just need to enter in their email and they will get emailed a code. Show already have account? No, we don't want that either. You can leave the gravatar if you want to. We're not using images with the login, but you can in Kinde. Kinde has many, many features, and you should feel free to explore those as well and add what you want to. I'm going to click Save here. And now let's go to the authentication page, and you can see this says email plus code for passwordless connections. This is specifically what our stakeholder requested. So we're going to do email plus code. No passwords need to be remembered. They do support password connections. Also, you can manage social connections. I'll click this and you can see there are many, many ones you can add here. So after that, I'm not going to add any of them, but you can take a look at that. So if we scroll down here, password connections, social connections, enterprise connections as well. So if you had an enterprise that you were working with, a large company that was using Azure or something like that, you could connect that as well. So all we need is what we had, and that is the email plus code here. Let's go back to home, click back into there because I got out of the screen that I wanted to be in, which I believed was just authentication. And after that, yep, we need to save. So we've just got the one setting here. That looks good. Save that. Let's go to tokens. Tokens here, this is something else that was mentioned in our user stories. Our stakeholder wanted everyone to at least have to log in once per week, he said. Now, once per week, that's not that often really. This is set up to log out or inactivity. This is set in seconds after 1 day. And so we want to change that. What we'd want to switch that to, here's the token expires in 1 day. That's fine. And the ID token is in 1 hour. But what we want, refresh tokens even longer, we want to change this one and set this to 1 week right here. So this should be 604,800. And if you look it up, that's how many seconds are in a week. So this should enable our users, the employees at the computer repair shop, to stay logged in Monday to Friday. And when they come back on Monday, they'll have to log back in for the next week of work. So that's what we have there. Let's go ahead and save those changes. You can see there's many other settings here for tokens as well that you could change. And then there are APIs, and we're not going to set this up for our kind management API. We're just going to use the dash, but you could set up much more and control much of kind through a dashboard that you would build. As a solo developer where you're creating something for a business, it could be just easy to, of course, as I mentioned, create an account for them, then show your stakeholder how to log in and quickly add or suspend or delete users. And we're going to look at that as well. So now let's go back to home, and we need to click on users. And we're ready to add a user. So I'll click add user. And the first user is going to be me as we're building this out. And your first user should be you. So I'll have Dave at davegray.codes. And there's some more things you can put in here, a username, a phone number, but those are all optional, not required. All we really need is the email because we're using that passwordless email plus code to sign in. And of course the name so we can be identified in there. So then just click save. And we have added our user. So after that, you can scroll down, and of course, the primary email will be passed in the ID token. This is currently unverified until the person would log in at least the first time. You can see what organizations they're possibly added to. Easy to suspend a user for an admin action or delete a user, and reset passwords as well. So very easy to handle here in the dash. And then as you see over here on the left-hand side, there are several other menus here for permissions and roles. Now, a free account at Kind supports up to 2 roles and 10 permissions. That's not per user, that's per free account. So we will be working with permissions because we'll have admin permissions, manager permissions, and then just our user permissions, or we could call them tech permissions because the employees of the computer store are techs, but I think we'll just go with user. So admin, manager, and user, but many things that can be set here for each user in Kind. But let's go back to the application as we still need to look at the settings after we've added a user. So let's go into the view details here, and nope, the settings is gone. That was back here. We need to go to settings right here in Kind. Now you can see there's some basic business details here as you scroll through, and I might as well switch this one to Chicago if I can find Chicago in this list. There we go. I am in Central Time, so I'll go ahead and set that. But not much to change that I want to right now. You could put in terms of use, privacy policy. Many of these things would actually go towards a public like software as a service if you were doing that. But of course, you're going to show the Kind branding because you are on a free account here. Let's save that. Oh, I need a valid email in here for the business. So once again, I'm going to say Dave at davegray.codes. However, if this was for our stakeholder, we would get their email address for their business and we would put this in there for them. Okay, let's save that change now. And now let's scroll down in the menu over here and let's look at permissions, what we can add. So we're going to add a permission. As I mentioned, we want 3 different ones. So let's call this admin permissions. Let me get my fingers on the right keys. Admin, and it needs a key as well. So I'll just do this all lowercase admin. We don't need to make it complicated. So now we see here in the table, the permission is admin, lowercase key is admin as well. Upgrade to add more than 10 permissions. If you want to upgrade your plan, that's fine. We shouldn't need to for this project. Next, not getting on the right keys right away. Manager, and then of course the key for manager will just be lowercase manager. And then finally, let's just add one and we'll call this user, and the key would be lowercase user. So we've added in the different permissions that we can apply to users. Now, in future lessons, we will be using these permissions to access certain things in the application. So the permission is authorization to use certain features of the application. Now back to the settings menu here on the left, we need to scroll down to policies. What I've found is we do not want to allow self-sign up because this is not a public-facing app. Once again, this would just be for employees. So we want to shut that off and save that change. Now we want to scroll down here once again and go to multi-factor auth. And what we want to do here is say, no, this is not required. We're already doing the email with the verification code here. So if we actually activated this with yes, and we were only supporting email, what would happen to our users is they would get an email with a code, and then they would get a second email with a code because it's multi-factor, so it would want to authorize twice. So if you did that, you'd really want to support something else like a text message, SMS, or something different than just email if you're set up like we are. We're just going to say no. All we need is to sign up with the email or sign in with our email, and then we should get emailed a code. And when we get that code, we enter it in and we can log into the application. Now, again, there are so many other settings you should explore here in Kinde. There is so much to it. They really support a lot of things. However, this is all I think we need for this application at this time. So we've set up a user, we've set up our permissions that will apply in the future. We have our application ready to go. Now let's go back and add a logout link to the header in our application. Back in VS Code, we can close the terminal window and we'll scroll down to our components directory. If you remember, that is where our header component is. Our header component is using some nav buttons. We created those components previously, and then it has this mode toggle for our light and dark. We're going to have to create one more button today for our logout link. But first we need to import the logout link from Kinde. So we'll say import logout link. There we go. And it also needs to have a /components at the end of this import. There we go. So now it's importing correctly. After that logout link, we're also going to just need to import button from shadcn. We're not creating another custom component here like we did with nav buttons. So we'll just use the button at this point, and this would be @/components/UI/button. And with that import complete, we're ready to apply it below. So let's come down here underneath our mode toggle. We'll start with our button. Now this will be much like our nav buttons. So we had a variant set equal to ghost. We had a size here equal to icon. And then we had an ARIA label. And this ARIA label would be equal to logout. And then we'll have a title that has the same value. So logout. After the title, we'll put in a class name equal to rounded-full, so we get that nice hover that shows the circle around the button. And then we need the as child prop, and that's because we're going to wrap that logout link that we got. Okay, so now inside our button, we'll use the logout link from Kinde. And inside of the logout link, and it has squigglies now because it expects a child, like the children. So we need to put something in there. I need to import an icon from Lucid React. And you can see we have home icon file and users round already. Let's import one more, and it's called logout. So now we can use that in the button down below, and that should solve the red squigglies as well. Yes, that is the child of the logout link. Oh, but it didn't solve those squigglies because I am using a capital O for out, and I believe that needs to be lowercase. Let's back that up, put in a lowercase O, and now all is good. Let's go back to the browser and check out the new header. Back in the browser, we're at the login page. I'm going to refresh it just to make sure we've loaded in everything new. Ready to click sign in, and let's see what happens in our application. Hopefully everything's working as expected. Yep, computer repair shop. Hey friend, welcome back. It wants our email. Now, one thing we haven't done yet in the Kinde dashboard is set up any type of design to these pages, and Kinde allows you to do that as well. So go to the design link in the Kinde dashboard and style the light and dark pages the way you want them to look for the sign-in and the different pages you'll see that Kinde provides. Now here, I'm just going to continue. So I'll say Dave at davegray.codes. Continue, and it should say, hey, it just sent a code to us. Now I need to check my email and get that code and log in. You do the same, and we should meet at the app. And I am logged in, so the code worked just fine, no problems there. Now that I'm logged in, there's one issue though, and we do have the logout link, so that should work, and we can try that. But while we're logged in, we should be able to go to any page, right? So there is the tickets page, there is the customers page, and so on. But if we log out now, let's click log out. Hey, and it takes us back to the login as expected. That's great. But what if I went back to, say, the tickets page? I can still go there. That's because we're logging in and we're logging out, but we haven't really protected any of the routes of our application yet. So that's what we need to do, and we're going to do it with middleware. Okay, back in VS Code, I'm going to close the header and close this page file. I'm going to highlight the source directory here in the file tree because the middleware goes in the source directory or at the same level that the app directory is at, not inside the app directory. So let's create this middleware file for Next.js. It is named middleware.ts because we're using TypeScript. Now we need to import with auth, which is a helper function from Kinde. So import that, and this says Kinde OSS, Kinde Auth Next.js. That looks correct, but it says server here, and I'm thinking maybe it should be from middleware. So let's change that import and see if that works out as we expect. I think that's what the import should be. Next is to import next request from next server, and that looks right. Now we'll export default, and we'll call our withAuth function. Now, inside this withAuth function, we can have our async function middleware that is expected, and it receives the request, which is a next request for TypeScript. Now, inside of this is where you can actually log the request. If you want to log requests in your application, this is a great place to do it. And of course, you might have some type of logger that you would use. Now, I don't want to log every request, but I'll just put this here as a reminder that you can do it here. But then withAuth also has a configuration object here. And I'm going to set is return, there we go, is return to current page, and set that to true. Okay, what that does is if I'm trying to log in or I'm trying to go directly to, say, the tickets page, I just type that URL in, and then, of course, the middleware catches that I'm not logged in and it kicks me out to the login page. Well, that's okay. Then after I log in, it remembers and it redirects me back to the page that I wanted to go to. And that is a great feature that will make users happy as well. Now, besides this withAuth and middleware function, you also want to have a matcher in this file. This is a regex matcher, but it helps what your middleware applies to. So we'll say const config. We set this equal to an object. This is where the matcher goes. Now, this looks like an array right here. I'm going to paste some things in, and then we will review what we have inside of this. And most of it is notes for you. So let's go ahead with that, and I'll Alt-Z to wrap it down, just so we can look at this. So what this matcher does is it matches all request paths except for the ones that I'm listing here inside this regex. So it doesn't match API routes. It won't match the special next static directory that has static files, or next image that has the image optimization files. It won't match auth. It won't match the fave icon or a robots.txt file, or maybe just an images directory. It's not going to match our login page because we want that to be public. You can't require that you're already logged in to visit the login page. And then the home page, because that's public, and so it's represented there with the $sign at the end. This is the regex excluding all of those things. So now auth essentially is applied to everything else. We have to be authenticated to visit that home route or the customer's route or the tickets route that we have. So let's go ahead and save this middleware. And we're going to check that out. So I should mention though, before we do, we can also check the auth and permissions on individual routes, and we'll need to do that for authorization in the future as we add more features and pages to the application. But for now, let's go back to the browser and ensure that our authentication applied by middleware is working on the routes. Okay, I'm back in the browser. I'm going to click Logout just to make sure I'm logged out. Now I'm at the sign-in page. Now what if I want to go straight to the tickets page? It kicks me out of that and sends me to the login, and that's exactly what we want to happen. Let me go back, and I can clearly visit the login page, no problem. But what if I want to go to customers? And yes, it does the same thing. So that middleware is protecting each route. And of course, we only have one more we could check, and that would be home. So we can just verify that quickly. But yep, it's protecting each one of those. So that's exactly what we want. But if we sign in, once again, we're going to be emailed a code. I can't type. Go .codes and click continue. I should get a code. And I am logged in. Now I can go to the home page. I can go to the tickets page. I can go to the customers page. Everything is working as expected because I am now logged in and the middleware is letting me access these pages. So again, we will be applying permissions and authorizations for certain features in this application on a route and page basis. That's coming up yet in this series. Also, in the next chapter, we'll create our Postgres database on Neon. So look for their link in the video description and course resources as well. And we'll create data schemas and communicate with that database using Drizzle ORM. A quick shout out to my patrons. Holy Coder is a progress provider. Sean Lynch is a senior patron, and my junior patrons, Programming Polyglot, Isaac, Will, Ernie, Georgie, Stacy, Abe, Javier, Michael. Thank you all so very much. You're helping me reach my goals. Find out more about how you can join my Patreon at patreon.com/davegray. Remember to keep striving for progress over perfection, and a little progress every day will go a very long way. Please give this video a like if it's helped you. And thank you for watching and subscribing. You're helping my channel grow. Have a great day, and let's write more code together very soon.